Welcome, everybody, to Adapter Parish, episode 58, Sabrina. As always, before we get started, let's talk about our next episode. Now, I can't think of a better way to introduce it than with the words spoken by James Earl Jones in one of the most beautiful and emotional looks at the American national pastime. The one constant through all the years has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again, but baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, is a part of our past. It reminds us of all that once was good, and that could be again. Just wonderful. Of course, that's from Field of Dreams, which we aren't looking at in our next episode. Instead, we're turning our attention to the other greatest baseball movie ever made. For those who like baseball movies but wish they all had more shitty kids being assholes in them. That's right, we're looking at the 1976 classic, The Bad News Bears, starring Walter Matthau, and its 2005 remake, starring Billy Bob Thornton. That's in 2 weeks on Tuesday, January 28th. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the show notes from this and all other episodes at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 58, Sabrina. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw. How do you want to start this episode?
Well, okay, so I've been thinking about this. I feel like we should start it like all good fairy tales. I have something I'd like to read right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, once upon a time, on the north shore of Long Island, not far from New York, there was a very, very large mansion, almost a castle, where there lived a family by the name of Larrabee. There were servants inside the mansion and servants outside the mansion. Boatmen to tend the boats, and 6 crews of gardeners, 2 for the solarium, the rest for the grounds, and a tree surgeon on retainer. There were specialists for the indoor tennis courts and the outdoor tennis courts, the outdoor swimming pool and the indoor swimming pool. And over the garage there lived a chauffeur by the name of Fairchild, imported from England years ago, together with a Rolls Royce, and a daughter named Sabrina. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm a regular Audrey Hepburn sitting over here.
Yay!
I wanted to start with that for a reason.
Okay.
So, I didn't know what to expect when we did this episode because I'd never seen, because you'd never seen either version of Sabrina.
No, I had not.
Right? So, to be clear, we're talking about 1954's Sabrina, directed by Billy Wilder, and then the 1995 remake, directed by Sidney Pollack. There was a play as well. We'll get to that in a little bit, but that's what we're talking about today. My exposure is maybe just a tad more than yours.
Okay.
Because for the longest time, I didn't really know about the original because I feel like maybe you can tell me if this is unfair to say, but I feel like if you're looking at the careers of everyone involved, there are a number of other movies that are going to get mentioned before this one. Like if you talk about Bogart, I don't hear people putting this in their top 5 Bogart movies.
No, I wouldn't have said so.
And I don't hear people putting this in their top 5 like Hepburn movies or Billy Wilder movies. So this one it wasn't that I was totally unaware of it. It's just I feel like people don't talk about it as much as other movies. But the 1995 one, that one came out right when, we were 12 or 13 and I was going to a lot more movies and I was more interested and I was seeing movie trailers and going to the video store a lot. So I was aware that the new I knew there was a romantic comedy starring Indiana Jones.
Yeah, of course, the sexiest man alive.
Of course, yeah, People Magazine 1998, sexiest man alive, Harrison Ford.
Yeah, him and Richard Gere.
Yep, Harrison, Indiana, Han Solo, Jones Ford is, I believe, his full title now.
Yes, there it is.
Flockhart. So, if I don't speed things up, we'll be recording this for 6 days and 7 nights.
Oh my God.
I was aware that the 1995 Sabrina was a thing, but I never saw it.
No.
And I feel like a lot of people didn't. It didn't do that well at the box office.
Yeah. Can I describe the premise of the movie for those who may not be familiar with it?
I would love for you to. I think that would be wonderful. Somehow
no one notices that Audrey Hepburn is pretty. The end.
This is a weird one.
So weird.
This was a really weird episode. I God, and this is why we like struggle where to start with this thing. Like, so that was the opening monologue from the movie, and of course, I didn't deliver it nearly as beautifully as Audrey Hepburn does in her breathless way. I mean, she's kind of like with that accent where she's like from everywhere.
Well, she kind of is from everywhere. She was a refugee.
That's true.
Yes,
was what I said.
Sorry, did I just make it like really dark? Like, oh, she was a refugee in World War II. Did you know that?
I mean, I don't feel amazing right now, but I don't feel that bad. So let's forge ahead.
Okay.
So we decided to do this one because it was, nice, simple, straightforward thing. It turned out to be a little less simple than we expected.
Well, one reason was we thought it was going to be a rollicking good time. We watched the preview, and there's like dancing and Paris and kissing and punching and old people and people in diamonds and dresses and things. And then we watched the movie, and yeah, sure, it has all those things, but there's also this like extremely dark undercurrent. Like but it doesn't go anywhere. We'll talk about it in a second, but like it's not like a romantic farce, which is what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, like a bit. I feel like this episode could be subtitled like Ruminations on What Was Entertaining in Another Time.
Yeah.
And
perhaps a simpler time.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. But I was just going to say, too, that like there's a second reason why this was just slightly more complicated than we expected. This one's not as big as the one you just said. That's clearly the big thing. But I thought the original movie was the original.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it's not. It was based on a play.
Right.
So I feel like I just want to talk about the play for a second.
Okay.
So the play was written by Samuel Taylor, who was also one of the screenwriters for the movie. Mm-hmm. And I want to give a couple of reasons why I think it's okay that we're not really going to talk about the play in detail. We did not read it. There's no real way for us to watch it. And here's
there's a high school production of it on YouTube you can watch that we did not watch.
I think it's just the first act.
Oh my God.
But anyway, it was written by Samuel Taylor, who also wrote, who's credited as a screenwriter on the movie. Here's one reason. He quit the movie because of all of the changes that Billy Wilder was making to the screenplay.
Great.
So he left unhappy.
Good.
So already we know that the movie ended up not being like totally like the play.
Uh-huh.
Also, it opened on November 11th, 1953. It ran for 318 performances.
Okay.
Which
it's like a year, not quite a year.
Is that good or bad or just kind of neither?
I don't really know what that is for like a play in the 50s. It's probably okay.
It's probably okay, but also I didn't really find anything about any revivals that happened.
Yeah, I've never even really heard of this play, and like I know a lot of plays.
I would say from the small amount of research that we do, it seems like Sabrina as a concept existed in the world as a play for about a year, and then as soon as the movie came out, the movie just that's Sabrina.
Right.
That's the thing people think about when they think of Sabrina.
Right.
So I think for our purposes, we are going to treat the original movie as the original. There are a couple of differences between the movie and the play.
Well, right, because the play has a talking cat and the two ants with the witchcraft.
Yeah. Who did the voice of the cat? I can never remember. Yeah, I'm actually wondering now how many people are going to listen to this hoping that we're going to talk about, what is it, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix now?
Oh, that is funny because we could actually maybe do that.
Are we committing to doing Sabrina the Teenage Witch now?
I'm committing to nothing. I have a baby.
We're going to commit to adding it to the list that we will think about later.
Great.
But yeah, we are not talking about that Sabrina. This is the chauffeur's daughter loves a guy, but then loves another guy, and that's the thing we're doing.
Right.
There are no talking cats in this one. But there are a couple of differences, and I will bring those up as they come up. So let's get to this movie. So we've given a little bit of background. I loved your plot. I loved your plot synopsis. I think that was great. But maybe, do you mind if I give like a slightly longer plot synopsis?
I do not mind.
Okay, then this is everything you would learn from the trailer. It's very straightforward, I would say. That's actually like gonna be the big problem, is that we're not 100% clear on character motivations throughout all of these because the characters are not very complicated.
Yeah.
But basically, you've got this estate on Long Island that is owned by the Larrabees, who are very rich. There's the mother and the father, Oliver and Maude, and they have two kids, Linus and David. Linus is the older one. He is played by Humphrey Bogart, and he is the one who runs their company now, and he's an astute businessman and has no time for love or fun or anything like that.
Humphrey Bogart, by the way, inches from death when he played this role.
Oh,
this
yeah.
leading man
was
role.
like 3 years before he died or something like that.
He does not look well.
No, he really
doesn't.
doesn't.
He's not a well man.
And then you've got his younger brother, William Holden, playing David Larrabee, who's just, he's a happy-go-lucky guy who's been married multiple times and doesn't care about anything. And he's fun and also kind of old.
Yeah. Shockingly old.
Like the thing that makes them look so much older is the fact that they're playing opposite Audrey Hepburn.
Right.
Who looks
12.
Adorable.
Yeah.
Adorable. And of course, we have Sabrina's father, who is the chauffeur.
Yes.
Who is played. It's good. He's played by John Williams.
Right.
And there's two things that are fun about that. What's your favorite one?
He's the inspector from Dial M for Murder. So I just wrote down in all caps, his blood was up.
That was a fun one.
Yes.
The other thing that's fun about it is he is, of course, not the composer John Williams, who composed all the music for the 1995 remake.
So not confusing at all.
No, not even a little. I feel like there's other characters, like there's the people who work in their house, and we meet. There's like this subplot where I say subplot. I guess it's the main plot. This movie's light. No part of this movie feels like plot. It feels like the subplot to another movie.
It really does. Like literally 51 minutes in, I'm like, okay, the setup is over, and there was only another hour left.
But the basic plot of the movie is. There's two. Okay, I think I know how to do this.
Okay.
Here's the plot. The plot is Sabrina is the young girl that works for the show. She doesn't work.
Oh my God. And there's an ambulance. Everything is terrible.
I have a baby strapped to the front of me. There is an ambulance. And I just said that Sabrina works for her father. Sabrina is the daughter of the chauffeur. She has lived in the house since she was a little girl. And she is in love with David Larrabee, the younger son.
And everybody knows this. It is an open secret.
I'll tell you one person who doesn't know it.
David.
David has no idea whatsoever. He does not have a second for this girl. And you may wonder. Yes, I was angry about it too, buddy. You may wonder, why does she like him so much? I also wonder that.
Yeah, like the fact in this one that he's been married 3 times immediately disqualifies him for me from being a sympathetic character. Like, I know that in the 50s it was a little bit different. And, just to kind of jump ahead, in the 90s, the narration is like, he's had a lot of relationships that didn't last. And that makes so much more sense that when Sabrina is the one who thinks like, oh, but I can tame him. I'm the one who can settle him down, then like I want to be this old man's 4th wife. Do you know what I mean?
The only reason he doesn't look old is because you got him next to Humphrey Bogart and also
literally a dying man,
and Walter Hamden, who plays Oliver, their father,
who is older than old, like ancient. Yeah, in fact, in our grand tradition of not going one episode without mentioning All About Eve, he's like the ancient actor from the awards ceremony, the one like giving out the award to Eve Harrington at the beginning and the end of the movie.
Like credited as old.
Yeah, old actor is like the name of his character.
So she likes David for some reason, and the movie starts with her dad packing her up and sending her to Paris for 2 years to go to culinary school. And she goes and she comes back a fine lady.
Because she met a baron.
Yes, who liked her.
Who liked her.
And took a liking to her and taught her how to be a lady.
Yeah. Made her cut her hair.
Yeah. So she comes back, and then essentially the plot from now our 2 plots converge, because she comes back and David suddenly goes, oh shit, I didn't know that she looked like Audrey Hepburn. I think I like her now. The problem is he is already engaged or going to be engaged.
He is going to be engaged to someone that they want to do a business deal with her dad.
Then that's the subplot.
Yeah.
So the B plot of this, and this is where they converge, and we find out about this throughout the whole thing, is that Linus has been basically putting together a merger between the 2 companies. There's another company that makes a plastic product. There's a lot of jokes in this movie about this plastic.
Oh, they love plastic.
Oh,
Loves
yeah.
his plastics. Yeah, there's this whole joke about like, oh, we're going to have, plastic champagne glasses? And it's like, yeah, no, we have those. It's the future now. We have plastic champagne glasses.
Kind of robs it of the humor a little bit.
And he's got, another thing is he's got a phone in his car to show how fancy he is.
Oh, yes.
A car phone.
But anyway, to continue with this part of the plot.
Sorry.
So, no, it's fine. So Linus is organizing this whole merger between the 2 companies. They're going to do a really big deal. And part of this is that David is going to marry the daughter of the guy who owns the other business.
Correct.
That's a big thing.
Yes.
So the fact that David is now suddenly in love with Sabrina, in love with.
It presents a problem.
Yeah, that presents a problem. So Linus, who is the villain of the piece.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. Linus is the absolute worst.
He's not even as bad in this one as he is in the remake.
Oh, no. He's
We'll get to
terrible
that.
in both of them.
Like, his whole thing is, here's what I'll do. I will get Sabrina to fall for me.
Yes.
Because I can do that.
Yes.
And I will get her to go to Paris. I'll get her to go back to Paris, and I'll tell her I'm going to go with her, but then I'll send her on her own, and I'll give her a note and a bunch of money, and she'll be gone, and this whole thing can continue forward, and David can be done with this silliness.
Right. And the reason that he is free to do all of this with Sabrina, who has just discovered that she's in love with David and David is in love with her, is that David is laid up because he sat on some glass and had to have a bunch of stitches in his butt.
In his butt.
That is a plot point of this movie. He sat on champagne glasses. It was very serious. He cut up his butt and his presumably taint and had to have...
It got way up in there. So yeah, I guess there's like two plots. Like if you were to ask Sabrina, what's the main plot of this movie? She'd be like, well, I went off to Paris and then I came back so I could be with David. But he was kind of laid up for a while with some medical stuff. And
he had stitches in his butt.
Yeah, Linus started wooing me and I got wooed real hard. And then Linus told me the whole truth. He told me the whole plan, that he was just tricking me. But I still like him for some reason. But I decided to leave these people behind and go to Paris by myself. And then on the boat, suddenly Linus was there and he came to Paris with me.
The end.
That's the plot according to her. According to Linus, like, you hear the whole plot, which is, oh, I'm tricking this dumb little girl because business is the most important thing.
Right, because he tries to buy her off and she won't be bought off.
Right. And then he decides that he actually does love her.
Yeah, he's tricked into revealing that he loves her, like revealing it to himself, admitting it to himself, because David shows up at the board meeting and he's like
uses
making
the power of violence.
Yeah, making fun of Sabrina, and Humphrey Bogart's like, I'm gonna punch you for insulting her honor, and David's like, aha, you do love her. Go, take the boat, go, and he does go.
Yes.
The end.
So I feel like I want to make clear, we didn't hate this movie. We enjoyed the movie.
No, we just thought it was weird and we did not understand the tone.
But also, but kind of going along with that, the things we enjoyed were not the plot.
Right.
Like, the things we enjoyed were the moments.
Right. And
because Billy Wilder makes a fun movie. He makes a fun movie with fun characters who say fun things, and there is, like, wackiness and delight that happens, but there's also weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the character that you and I think, both enjoyed the most was old Pa Larrabee.
Oh, yeah. We said.
Who is apparently, a shrewd businessman billionaire, but spent the entire movie trying to get an olive out of the bottom of an olive jar.
I feel like we are kind of told as an audience that the reason their business is so big is because of Linus.
Right. Clearly, yes.
Like, his parents made some money and then he made them a lot more money.
Yes. But he's super funny. The scene where David sits on the glass is hilarious.
Yep.
And it's clearly like, it makes me feel like Billy Wilder was like the kind of person who watched like Roadrunner and the Coyote and went, well, but he would have been seriously injured. I don't understand. So he did like this farcical thing of him sitting on wine glasses that were in his pocket, but then took that plot point to the logical conclusion, which was like, oh no, he would be really injured if he actually did that. Like, the scene was funny, but then he actually medically was laid up for weeks after that.
Well, I think the thing we don't know is, was that in the play as well?
Yeah, who knows?
And it might have been.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like at most I think it actually went the other way. I would be interested to find out. I think it probably came from, we need David to be out of the way so that Linus can swoop in and woo Sabrina.
Right.
What's the funniest way that we can have him out of commission?
Yes.
Like, we need to have him medically out of commission, but what's a funny way we can do it?
Right. We don't want to give him like pneumonia.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like glass in the ass seems to be
glass in the taint.
Seems to be the way that that they decided to do it.
Glass in the dingle.
Well, no, not the front.
You don't know.
It didn't get matter if that was in there, we would have heard about it. But anyway, we have a very funny scene where they're pulling the glass out of his butt.
Yes.
And we get all manner of delight. So
remember, Humphrey Bogart has constructed for him a plastic hammock with a cutout for his butt so he can lie in it and his butt won't be pressed against anything.
Because he loves his plastic.
I thought you were going to say because he loves his brother.
Well, no, he loves his plastic and he loves his brother's butt. Yeah. So he wants to put those two joys together, and we get the hammock with the hole in it.
Yes.
So I guess, God, where to continue with this? Here's some things I found out about it. Would it surprise you to know that the production for this was not the smoothest in the world?
No.
Yeah, so they did not have a completed script when they started shooting. I mentioned before that Samuel Taylor quit this production.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would make sense and explain why it feels like very disjointed and also the tone is very weird.
Yeah, so Samuel Taylor quit. Ernest Lehman came on. He worked every day. So from what I could find out, he was basically writing all morning every day, and then they were shooting whatever he was writing in the afternoon. So they were kind of figuring it out as they went. So it seemed like they had momentum.
They were making it up as they went along.
It seemed like they were talented people flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
Here's some other things I found out about it. There were some interesting people who weren't in this movie. Cary Grant was originally offered the role of Linus.
Okay.
And he passed on it.
Mm-hmm.
I could actually see him in this role.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I could see Audrey Hepburn, let me rephrase that. I could see Sabrina falling for Cary Grant.
Yeah.
That seems much more plausible.
Than falling for a man who's 3 years away of dying of throat cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if Cary Grant was old, he would still be believable.
Yeah, well, at one point you turned to me and you were like, if he was 10 years younger, he would still be 20 years older than her.
But Bogart was cast and he was never comfortable. He thought he was miscast. And you know what?
He may have been.
I agree with him.
Yeah.
I agree with Bogey. He was not super happy. He also wanted his wife, Lauren Bacall, to be cast as Sabrina.
Okay, well, the age is the same.
Yeah, and he complained about Audrey Hepburn's acting all the time. Apparently, he felt she was very inexperienced. He felt that she was asking for too many takes of things, and he was not happy. You know who was happy that Audrey Hepburn was cast in this?
Audrey Hepburn.
No, William Holden.
Oh.
Because they started boning while they were making the movie.
Oh, good. Great. Happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, that relationship didn't last.
No.
But it certainly came as a result of this movie.
Happy to hear it.
So it just sounded like it was a mess.
I like the implication of that is, because I said Audrey Hepburn. Maybe
You're like,
she
no.
was very happy she was boning William Holden. Like,
maybe.
I like that the implication was she was not happy, but he was very happy.
We can't know. That's the biggest thing. We can't know.
We can't know.
I'm a little surprised at how much respect this movie gets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's in the National Film Registry. It's gotten so much attention. I have come to find out over the years. There are a lot of people that love this movie. It is a quote unquote classic.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't get it.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that it stars Humphrey Bogart and Audrey Hepburn and it's directed by Billy Wilder. All people we like. We've talked about Billy Wilder on this show. We loved his Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about the weird suicide subplot?
Well, now I thought we could get into some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, no, before that, I want to keep going on the stuff that we liked.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry.
Is there anything?
We did not like the suicide subplot.
No. But was there other stuff you liked in this movie?
Like I said, like the characterization of each individual character was good.
They were broad. And fun.
But like all the servants, there were all of these like kind of
Yes.
comedic, almost like vaudeville style servants. Like there was a tall, skinny one, and there was an old one, and a young one, and the chauffeur. You know what I mean? Like the servants all had very interesting relationships with each other. And the dad was really, really funny.
Can I talk about the servants for a second?
Yeah.
Though? Just to go on that for a moment, like. I feel like there's a thing that happens when we do the show is that we find out that there was like a line or a moment from an older movie or an older TV show that was referenced in something we love, but we didn't know that it was a reference at the time.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of people know the scene from The Simpsons. What's Homer like going for? What is he going into the shop for?
It's like a monkey's paw.
Oh, right. And then the guy tells him,
like,
well, the monkey's paw is cursed.
That's
And
bad.
That's bad. But he says, but it comes with a free Frogurt.
That's good.
And it goes on from there. That's good. That's bad.
Yeah.
Like, that. I'm pretty sure that came from this movie.
We just explained that joke so beautifully.
Well, and of course, explaining the joke
Makes it funnier.
Of course, it makes it
As
funnier.
we all know.
I just feel so happy for every one of you listening that now you can watch that and know that it's even funnier than it was before
because it's from this weird, obscure movie called Sabrina.
Well, A, I wouldn't call it obscure, but also B, because we explained it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what made it funnier.
There it is.
But like, that's a scene from this movie where
Yes.
the servants get a letter from, like, her dad gets a letter from her, and he's reading it off, and like all the servants kind of one by one are responding to what's in the letter by going, well, that's good. Well, that's bad. Well, that's good. And it's very funny.
It's very funny.
And I feel like the movie is full of stuff like that. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of really snappy dialogue, and it's fun. You like the characters. My problem is not with the minor characters. I feel like all the minor characters are great and fun and interesting. My problem is with our three leads.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they want.
Yeah, or what any of them see in each other.
I want to try an experiment right now. I want to ask you a couple of things, only because I think you're very smart. And for this kind of thing, you might be smarter than me.
Okay.
Like, I want to give you some character motivations, and I was wondering if you could help me try to suss them out a little bit.
Okay.
So we know that Sabrina loves David.
Yes.
Why?
Handsome?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
He's fun.
Fun?
She says, doesn't she have a line where she's like, he never had an unkind word to say about anybody?
Yes, he's kind. Like, he can afford to kind of be kind, but like it's very surface level, but like that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
What else is there though?
Happy-go-lucky, glamour. He like lives a very glamorous lifestyle that she likes to kind of look at.
Yeah, they kind of set her up as that voyeur. So at the beginning of the
Yeah.
movie, she's like watching a party happening.
Yeah.
While she's supposed to be cleaning the car with her dad.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like, is there anything else you can think of? Because I can't really think of
No,
much
and
else.
it's not even like that he's got like some secret talent or like they have these fun conversations and he tells her things that he doesn't tell anyone else. Like there's literally nothing like that. They have no relationship.
Yeah, okay, well, let's move on to David then for
Okay.
a second. So David's motivation at the beginning of the movie is just fuck a bunch?
Yeah, drink a lot of alcohol and seduce ladies in the tennis court.
I guess maybe that motivation doesn't need to be explained. Because every character's got to start somewhere.
I mean, if you could drink champagne and seduce ladies in the tennis court, like you would do that.
Like, I would actually argue that David has the best arc of the movie.
Yeah.
Because he starts off as someone who doesn't want any responsibility, but by the end of the movie, he's the one saying to Linus, go fall in love.
Yeah, I got this.
I got this. I will take care of the company. I will step up and be responsible.
Yes.
Also, I will get married to this other lady.
Yes. And also you kind of get the feeling that like being married is not going to put much of a dent in David's lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, like it's probably better that he doesn't marry for love because he's not going to get hurt and he can just do whatever he wants.
So, like, his motivation at the beginning makes sense to me. At the end, it makes sense because it presents a good arc. His motivation in the middle is, well, I want to fuck Sabrina.
Right.
Which, as you said at the very beginning,
Most beautiful woman in the world. Famously.
it's Audrey Hepburn.
Famously.
That makes sense.
Yes.
But I guess it's not complex.
Yes.
It's a very simple motivation, which is not a problem.
Correct. Yes, it's, oh, I did not recognize you in your pretty Paris dress. Now I think you are a pretty lady. Let us kiss with tongues.
Yes.
Yes.
No, 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 no.
Ew.
I'm never going to make that sound again.
Gross. Gross. I don't know. Have I been? I must have mentioned on the podcast before. I find kissing in movies repugnant, and so anytime anyone has to kiss in a movie, you just see me like cringing in the corner, just saying gross, gross.
And I feel like any kiss in a movie before 1960 was already just kind of
Blah, 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 blah.
just kind of nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone could probably give me a million examples, but I feel like kissing in movies got way better after like the 60s.
I still think it's gross.
But the most uncomfortable kiss is yet to come.
Yes.
We haven't even gotten there yet.
Haven't gotten there.
Okay. His motivations are there. They're believable but simplistic.
Yes.
Sabrina's motivations never really make sense.
Unclear.
Because also her motivation changes from wanting to be with David to wanting to be with Linus.
Which is even more incomprehensible. Like,
For-
what does she see in Linus?
like really nothing.
Like, literally nothing. They barely have a conversation.
And not only does he not deserve it because he is lying to her the entire movie, he hasn't done anything to make her feel that way.
Yeah, we never see them, like, having, like, you know what this movie needs?
What's that?
A, like, Beauty and the Beast style montage with Angela Lansbury singing Tale as Old as Time in the background so that we can see them falling in love and, like, doing
Linus
something.
and Sabrina.
Yes, and,
Okay.
like, doing something together that they're surprised that they are enjoying and yet finding pleasant or pleasing, but every interaction that they have, she seems really uncomfortable and just saying like, yeah, this is fine, but I would like to go home and see David now, please.
And I guess but there's that one scene when they're on the boat and he's like wooing her on the boat with the yes, we have no bananas scene.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the most the movie ever gives us in terms of Sabrina finding something about Linus she likes. And it seems like the only thing that she finds out about Linus that she likes is that he's a person.
Right.
That's it.
Literally a person.
She's like, oh, because he's telling her things about his past. And she goes, oh, you're a person and you like know people and you like things.
Fascinating.
God, I
had no idea.
I think I love you.
Yeah.
I think I'm in love with you right now. And then she wants to be with him. But then for the only time in the movie when Sabrina's motivation makes sense to me is after he has come clean about everything. We're going to get to Linus's motivations here in a minute.
Yeah.
He's come clean to her and he tells her everything. And she says, well, I'm leaving. You do not need to come with me.
You do not need to give me anything except this ticket for the boat, please.
I'm GTFOing.
Yeah.
And that is the only time in the movie that I looked and said, okay, I get Sabrina now.
Yeah.
She's finally making a decision that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much of that is who I am. I don't know how much of that is when we're watching it in 2019.
Yes.
Did we watch it in 2019? Yeah, we watched it in 2019.
Yeah.
It is 2020 now.
Yay.
I know how the 21st century.
Yay.
I don't know what it is, but that was the first thing that made sense to me.
Yeah.
But then he shows up at the end and she's happy, and now I don't understand all over again.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Linus?
Yeah.
What's his motivation at the beginning?
Money.
Which, okay, again, simple.
Yeah.
But
understandable.
like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get that motivation.
Yeah, money and like kind of keeping the family name, having a high reputation, and they've got all these corporations, and like he feels very responsible for his brother because his brother doesn't work even though he's supposed to.
Yeah.
He just feels very responsible for keeping everything together. And at one point, like, someone says to him, like, whoa, you should get married, Linus. And he's like, when would I have the time? I'm running this goddamn business 24 hours of the day.
So then he does the bad thing, which is he lies to this adorable Sabrina.
Yes.
For most of the movie.
Yeah.
And then, but again, his motivation is the same. He wants
Right.
money.
Yeah.
And he wants her gone.
Yes.
Because she complicates things.
Yes.
But then his motivation changes because...
Well, there's this whole, like, it's one of those things where, like, he said it and then suddenly realized it was true.
Yeah.
Like, he's lying to her about, like, oh, gosh, sometimes I just want to, like, throw everything away and just run off to Paris. And she's like, well, you should do that. Like, Paris is great. Yeah, you should go to Paris. And he's like, I could never do that. And then as he says this lie, which is, I want to go to Paris, suddenly I guess he realizes he actually does want to go to Paris.
Yeah.
And then goes to Paris.
Yeah. And so, like, his motivation changes because he does decide he wants that life a little bit, but also he's starting to fall in love with her.
Yes.
Why?
For some reason.
That's my question.
Yeah, we have no idea. And it is unclear. It is unclear.
Like,
other than, like, she's pretty.
Well, she's pretty and youthful, and I guess, see, that's the thing. I feel like if we start to talk about it, we can start to find things like, oh, she brings out a side of him where he does want to go to Paris.
Yeah.
And he starts to fall in love with the idea of being that person.
Yes.
But that's not really in the movie.
No, that's just us trying to find meaning where perhaps there is none.
Because you could do that about anything.
Yeah.
And you could do that about bad movies. And we've done it about bad movies. Many people have done that about bad movies many times.
Yes.
But if it's not in the movie, it's not in the movie. And
Right.
I genuinely don't feel that it's in this movie.
No.
So,
No, you could pick at these like tiny little moments like, oh, when they were in the car and she's speaking French and he thinks that's delightful. But it's like, it's like lower than subtext. It's like implied text.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just the tropes that are telling us what to feel in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, we know that it's a romantic comedy. God, I feel weird even calling it a romantic comedy. We know that it's a romantic movie.
Yeah.
And so two characters have to end up together at the end, and her only two options are David and Linus.
Right, out of every person in the entire world.
Yeah, and like the movie is showing us that she's developing a relationship with Linus. So as an audience, we are being told to root for her and Linus, even though the movie is also telling us constantly don't root for Sabrina and Linus.
Yeah.
Because he is a jerk and doesn't deserve her.
Yes.
And is the villain.
Yes.
So now I guess that comes to the things we didn't like about this movie.
Yeah.
I guess I have two things.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we just spent the segment of the good things talking about other things we didn't like. But what are the two things that you wanted to mention specifically that you did not like?
Well, very specifically, and I just want to say again, we enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed watching this movie. It's even a bad Billy Wilder movie is still a fun movie.
Fair enough.
But here's one thing that just sticks out. You mentioned it before, the suicide attempt.
This was very weird.
Do you want to set the stage?
Yeah. So Sabrina is being sent off in the morning to go to Le Cordon Bleu so she can become a chef or a cook like her mother was before her mother died. And so she can marry a chauffeur and have a good life over the garage like her parents did.
Oh, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
I mentioned that I was going to bring up some differences between the movie and the play. In the play, she is not in Paris because she is going to go to cooking school. She's in Paris because she is the private secretary to the Assistant Economic Commissioner Office of Special Representative for Europe Economic Cooperation Administration.
Cool.
So she's got like a
job. Like
she's
a
there,
real job.
She's there because of a job. And yes, she's a secretary, but she's the private secretary to some very important people.
Yes.
And she's got a real job. And so in the movie, they say, well, she's going to go to learn how to crack eggs.
Yes. But she spends that evening, instead of packing, she spends it sitting in a tree watching David at this like glittering party. And then she goes and says goodnight to her dad, and she writes him a goodbye letter that says, I don't want to go to Paris. I want to die. And then she goes downstairs to the garage where all of their 47 cars are and turns them all on and tries to like fall asleep and die of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yep.
And then Linus finds her and says, you really shouldn't have done that. You could have died. And she was like, oh, gosh, I did not know. And it's like all played very broad. Like it's all played for laughs.
Yes.
And it is quite disturbing.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of what I was saying before. Like, maybe this movie doesn't work now.
Yeah.
Maybe it worked then. I'm not saying it's good that there's a suicide attempt in the movie just because it was made in the 50s. But, like, I get that it could be part of a comedy at that time.
Yeah, and I think we have a pretty good clue that it didn't work even in 1995 because that is not in that movie.
Yeah. Like, thankfully, that's not in there
Thankfully,
anymore.
not even a little bit.
So that part is just off-putting. It's a really fun movie, but that really set us against the movie kind of from the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, because it happens right at the beginning and then it's never mentioned again.
Never once.
Not once.
Then there's the other thing, which is just the basic characterization of Sabrina. We've already talked about like how her motivations don't make a ton of sense. Here's another difference between the movie and the play. In the play, she comes back from Paris with a romantic interest in tow, with a French suitor in tow.
Ooh la la.
Yeah, she still is like presented as having a crush on David and ends up with Linus, but like she's not a child.
Right.
She's coming back with something. She's got something in her life. But like I started out this episode by reading that monologue from the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this ended up being one of my biggest problems with it, is that we start the movie with this really kind of beautifully spoken monologue. It's very much sounds like it's out of a fairy tale.
Yeah, totally.
Where she's describing everybody. It goes on beyond what I said at the beginning, where she's introducing you to all the characters, and we get little character introductions and scenes with all of them. It's really nice, and I was so excited that we're watching a movie from 1954 that is about a female character, and the first person we get to hear from in the movie about a female character named after the female character is the female character talking to us
about someone else.
Audience.
Yeah.
Well, that's part that it started to go wrong a little bit at the beginning because she's only talking about other people, like mostly men.
Yeah.
But also that idea that the story is being told from her point of view really goes out the window immediately.
Yeah.
I don't really understand from a thematic standpoint why the movie starts with that monologue. You could lose it entirely, and other than it being kind of superficially entertaining because of the fairy tale part of it and the fact that Audrey Hepburn's good and sounds good, it doesn't actually help the story at all. In fact, I think it hurts it.
Yeah, because we think it's going to be a totally different kind of story because the movie is not from her perspective even a little.
Yeah.
Like it's just not. She's just an object that they're kind of fighting over. And she doesn't have really any agency. Like the only decision that she ever really makes is at the end when she takes the ticket. And then that decision totally gets overridden because Humphrey Bogart follows her onto the boat. So now what is she supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like maybe she didn't want him to follow her onto the boat.
Well, we find out that she did want him to follow her.
Right. But that's kind of what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's like it is kind of disappointing that you think it's going to be as you say, the movie is named after this character. You think it's going to be a movie about this character, and it is about her, but it's not about like her thoughts or feelings or actions. It's about her. It's like the movie The Maltese Falcon. Like the Maltese Falcon doesn't do anything. It's just a thing that sits there.
Yeah.
Right? That people want. And that's what this is about.
Well, and as we all know, the Maltese Falcon was one of the most beautiful actresses of all time.
There it is.
Yeah.
I think we just did the female characters a little underwritten.
Yeah. Like it just is a real, God, it's such a problem.
Yeah.
This movie does not sit well with me. I think that's the problem I have with it.
Yeah.
I'm a little annoyed that it's considered such a classic by so many people.
Well, so much of a classic that they updated it in 1995.
They sure did. Well, let me put it a different way.
Okay.
Someone made the decision to update. How do I say this? Okay, let me backtrack for a second. I want to talk a little bit about Barbara Benedek.
Okay.
Okay, Barbara Benedek was one of the credited screenwriters on this remake of Sabrina. Some things that I found out about her, she wrote The Big Chill. That was like her first big thing.
Okay.
She wrote a couple of other things. Really, this was like her only fourth credit. She was an uncredited screenwriter on Pretty Woman.
Okay.
I would love to just read this one thing that I found out that Gary Marshall said about the work she did on Pretty Woman.
Okay.
Would that be okay with you?
Yeah.
Just because so much of what we're talking about is problematic. So here's some more stuff.
Great.
He said, we had 5 different writers on Pretty Woman. In all the rewrites, the part of Vivian, the prostitute, came quite easily. It was the character of the businessman, Edward Lewis, that presented the most problems. Only Barbara Benedek, the sole woman writer in the group, got the voice of Edward down by creating a Donald Trump-style executive with a vulnerable side.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Do you want to unpack that or do you want to move on?
Let's move on.
No, but I wanted to bring her up for a reason because the thing that I found out that was amazing about this, and I was really trying to find something that could like 100% corroborate this, and I couldn't, but I love it, which is she was working on a screenplay and it came to producer Scott Rudin and he said, you know what? You've written something that's a lot like, did you ever see that movie Sabrina? You've basically written the same. Can you just make this a remake of Sabrina?
Fascinating.
So the screenplay came before it was a remake.
Well, I just love that passion for the original material. I have a feeling our quadrants are going to be pretty easy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. So she came in, and I guess she did her draft of it, but the other credited screenwriter was David Raphael, who I found out, so Sidney Pollack directed this. David Raphael was like a frequent Pollack collaborator, often uncredited.
Gotcha.
So it wouldn't surprise me if like basically the life of this movie was Barbara Benedek writes a screenplay. It comes to producer Scott Rudin. He says this should actually be Sabrina. Some work was done to make it a remake of Sabrina by like reworking scenes and adding characters in and changing names. And then I feel like she probably left the project. And then when they actually were coming time to shoot it, David Raphael came in to rewrite it.
Gotcha.
So I wonder how much I would be so interested to see her original screenplay.
Do you think Sabrina's got glasses and overalls in the original screenplay?
I have no idea. That decision. Anyway, talk a little bit more about Sidney Pollack for a second, just to give everyone some context for this. So this is the only remake he ever did. He did The Way We Were, Tootsie, Out of Africa, The Firm. So he's like
a guy.
He was more of a producer. He was also an actor, and he was kind of a prestige director.
Yeah.
I feel like he was one of those producers that would look at things and say, oh, no, I'll produce lots of stuff. Oh, that one?
I might get an Oscar.
I think I want to direct that one. Yeah. Which I think is fine. I actually have no real problem with Sidney Pollack, but I feel like you can look at a lot of his work now and definitely pull some things out that were problematic. I feel like he was a director of his time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tootsie's a really good example of a movie that has not aged well. God, I used to love that movie. It's so bad. It's a terrible movie.
I feel like there are those directors that really want to kind of push things forward, and I don't get that feeling with him.
Yeah.
I think, and like for him to come in and have his only remake be a remake of Sabrina, maybe that says a lot about how he felt about like classic Hollywood. Mm-hmm. But I don't know a lot. This is now rampant speculation.
Who can say?
But I wanted to give some background on it. But here we are. We have this movie. Where do you want to get started with this one? Because I have some questions.
Okay, do you want to just start with your questions?
Yeah. First question. Overall, how did you feel about the cast?
Well, I feel like this is the second time on this podcast that we have seen Julia Ormond called upon to play the same character as someone who is just famously radiant, luminescent, fantastic, amazing, legendary actress.
Can I add 2 other words to that?
Yes.
Magnetic and charismatic.
Yes, those are all great words.
Yes.
Great words. If you listened to our Howard's End episode, she was called upon to play the Vanessa Redgrave role. And here she is playing, obviously earlier than that, playing the Audrey Hepburn role, which is a monumental task. I think anyone would agree, trying to follow in the footsteps of Audrey Hepburn. How do you think she succeeded? Well or not so well?
Okay. I want to say one thing about Julia Ormond. I want to say this is a positive, but I feel like you tell me how this sounds.
Okay.
She's incredibly beautiful.
She's very pretty.
She's gorgeous.
Very, very pretty.
And that's something that you can say about Audrey Hepburn as well.
Yes, accurate.
So she is, I think, just as beautiful and radiant. And, like, here's the deal. Julia Ormond walking into the room, I can understand a character looking at her and going, I am in love.
Yes.
That makes sense to me.
Let me also say that I believe the script did her no favors.
I think the script and the direction did her no favors.
Yes. And honestly, I think the problem is not her fault because it's rarely an actor's fault if they're tragically miscast.
Yes.
But she's just miscast. She's 30.
Yeah.
She's 30.
So where are some places where this presents a problem?
It presents a problem literally the entire, like, she doesn't quote unquote mature nearly as soon in the movie as Audrey Hepburn does in the 1954 version.
Can I walk it back for a second?
Yes.
Just like to paint a picture of the original, Audrey Hepburn is playing like quote unquote young Audrey Hepburn with like a ponytail and a little dress and everything, running around being the daughter of the chauffeur. And she's that Audrey Hepburn for maybe 20 minutes?
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, because we don't see as much of her life in Paris as we see of Julia Ormond's life in Paris.
But then she's in Paris and then it's 2 years later and she comes back and she is this woman. She is Audrey Hepburn.
Yes.
She is very sophisticated, well-dressed, has much more poise. And she really has that poise for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Like the awkward young girl is gone at that point. What we're left with are the desires of the awkward young girl. She still wants David, but the way she acts is very different than she acted at the beginning.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to paint that picture because now we have Julia Ormond.
Yeah. So I think someone somewhere along the line must have said, gosh, the way that we can learn more about her as a character is to show more of her life in Paris. And her life in Paris really consists of standing around awkwardly, staring at people, and not really doing much to justify the fact that she immediately gets a hot French boyfriend and the editor at the magazine where she's interning takes like this great interest in her and takes her under her arm as like her mentor. But she's still got the bad hair. She's still got the glasses. She's still got the baggy clothes until the minute that she comes back to New York. So it doesn't make sense. Like, we don't see like a gradual process of her becoming more and more sophisticated. She like just sort of immediately becomes sophisticated at the end of these 2 years or whatever it is.
Yeah, we absolutely don't see it. Can we dig in just a little bit more on how, like the awkwardness of young Sabrina?
Yes.
So this has come up before in the show when we've done Little Women.
Yeah.
We have a problem when you have a character who is supposed to be a young girl played by a woman.
Yeah.
Because if she plays it like a young girl, it is inescapable that she is a grown woman on screen for the audience. And to us, they don't come across as immature, they come across as stunted.
Yes.
And there's a really big difference there. And so what we have in the original is we have Audrey Hepburn very believably playing a really young woman who is just cute and innocent and inexperienced and naive. But this time, we have someone who seems sheltered and maybe there's something wrong with her and she is stunted and clearly comes across as a 30-year-old woman living an awkward life in the garage, in like a living above the garage being protected by her father with these rich people.
Imagine if Tina Belcher were played by Julia Ormond.
As a 30-year-old woman.
Yeah.
That so much doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's so clear too, the way she's going to mature in the audience's eyes is they're gonna get rid of her. They're gonna get rid of her long hair. They're gonna get rid of her glasses. They're gonna get rid of her like goofy overalls.
Yeah.
Like we know what's gonna happen.
She's dressed exactly the way that I used to dress in middle school, except the difference is that she's 30 years old.
Yeah. So I think I just want to put a really fine point on how much this doesn't work.
Yes.
And then she comes back.
Yes. And they've dressed her in like glittery clothes. She wears a lot of suits in this movie. She wears a lot of power suits.
Well, it's
Did you notice
1995.
that? Yeah. She wears a lot of like shoulder pads and 1995 and like chunky heels. So she to our eyes, she actually looks pretty frumpy, but clearly the idea is that she's very sophisticated.
Yeah.
But like she never my problem is, what has she done to make any of these people interested in her? First of all, in France, she really doesn't spend a lot of time like being interesting. But then we learn that she's kind of like grown and matured and she's had all these experiences and like maybe lost her virginity. And
Oh, definitely.
And she comes back and everyone's suddenly fascinated by her and she still doesn't have anything to say for herself. Like there's this one montage where we are to learn she is sophisticated because she knows how to eat Moroccan couscous with her hands. And there's this sort of montage where she and Harrison Ford are in this restaurant talking, and it's like she knows something that he doesn't know because she's worldly and she knows how to eat this exotic cuisine. But like because it's a montage, I was like, this would be a great opportunity for us to hear what she has to say. And there's just music over this montage of them eating couscous.
Which I think is funny because not 20 minutes ago, you called for a montage in the original to show the like growing of their relationship.
Right.
Which I do think is a really different thing than trying to show the intelligence of a character.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
You're trying to show two different things, and a montage works for one, but it doesn't work for the other.
Right.
So I agree with you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like the first time she ever has something to say and we don't actually hear what it is. There's also and she picked up photography. That's the other thing we are to learn that became interesting about her, is that she's a really good photographer. So Harrison Ford takes her out on this ruse to photograph their house on the vineyard so that he can sell it, and instead she just ends up like taking pictures of him and she's like, "Oh, you're very photogenic," and he's like, "Thank you, it's because I'm Harrison Ford."
Yep. I think in 3 years I'm going to be voted sexiest man alive by People magazine.
I have this premonition. So that's Sabrina.
Yeah, and before we move on, there's just one other thing I want to say about Sabrina.
Yeah.
Which is that really kind of naive way that she's really nervous around everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That never goes away in this movie.
No, not through the entire thing.
Weirdly, it makes her even more stunted.
Yeah.
Because she's this beautiful, well-dressed woman, but she's still acting like a nervous 13-year-old in front of these guys.
Yeah, and especially in front of mom. Like, she's really scared of mom.
It just doesn't work. Like, it really doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't, just like in Howard's End, I don't blame Julia Ormond for this. I think this was kind of a losing role.
Yeah. I just hate this like aspirational idea that like if you took off your glasses and put on some red lipstick, you'd suddenly look like Julia Ormond. Like at one point I said to you, would I look like that? And you were like, yes, you would. And I got very upset. I was like, that's not true.
That's not the way I said it either. I paused for a moment and then I gave you a very, very firm yes.
You did. That's true.
And you didn't appreciate it.
I didn't appreciate it. I'm 13 weeks postpartum. I would not look like that with red lipstick on. Anyway.
You mentioned Harrison Ford.
Yes.
Maybe we should move on to the Larrabee brothers.
Yes. Linus and David. They have not changed the names.
So it sounds like you would agree that Julia Ormond was like miscast in this.
Like kind of tragically miscast.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it tragic. I would just say like somewhat.
Well, you told me that they wanted Winona Ryder, and I think she would have been a better fit.
It's crazy how much better she would have been.
And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she read the script and went, "Oh no, this character has no agency," and turned it down. Like that would not surprise me even a little.
Right. But I would argue a little bit. I don't think she's tragically miscast. I just think she's kind of miscast.
A little miscast.
I think Harrison Ford is tragically miscast.
Is he too handsome?
He's just wrong for this type of role.
Yeah.
And this is something we'll probably get into in a little bit, but the tone of this movie is fucked up and all over the place.
It's very weird.
It can't decide whether it wants to be this like really beautiful, lush, romantic movie or whether it wants to be like a witty comedy.
Right.
He's I would argue, wrong for both of those things. And I think of every great job I've ever seen him do on screen. There has to be something more dramatic going on than what's happening in this.
Yeah.
He
He
does
only
the
gets
finger-
to point at people like one time.
Yeah, the finger of doom only comes up like once or twice, but he needs to be in a movie where he gets to do that 30 times. I feel like that's playing to his strengths.
He just like in a movie that can't decide whether he is the villain or the romantic hero, like he's not really good at either of those things.
I've seen him, I mean, he has played the villain a couple of times.
Yeah.
You mean in this specifically or in general?
In this.
Oh, yeah. No, in this specifically, he's not good at either of those things.
It seems like he should make a choice and stick to it, and it's very unclear what his motivations are.
God, one of the strengths that any Billy Wilder movie has is at least the dialogue is snappy.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone who's in it can deliver the dialogue in a snappy way that has rhythm and keeps kind of the momentum going.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is just not doing that in this movie. He delivers all of these really snappy lines, but he does it and and I'm sure he's being really thoughtful about his motivation. He's really being really thoughtful about why he's saying the words that he's saying, but it just comes out as such a slog.
Yeah, this movie's very slow paced. I was in excruciating pain. Like, this movie is so slow.
But that's his acting. Let's talk about the characterization. He is the villain.
He's awful. He's worse than Humphrey Bogart.
Oh, way worse.
Like, his motivation is terrible. He's like, yeah, I mean, it's great that you're in love, but what am I supposed to do? Give up $1 billion?
Yeah.
Like, he literally says that at one point. He's awful, and he's mean, and he's a jerk, and he like seems like he hates everybody.
Well, tell me what you think about this. Let me try to kind of distinguish between the characterizations of Linus in the original and Linus in this one. I feel like in the original, whenever Linus is telling like his parents about what his plan is for what he's going to do, he's stating it as very matter of fact. He says, well, okay, she's complicating everything. We'll get her out of here. Here's how I'm going to do it. I don't feel good about it, but like this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get her out of here.
Yeah.
But in the new one, he is scheming.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's talking to his mother. Oh, really quickly, can I give my nominee for Sir not appearing in this film?
Yes, please. Thoroughly endorsed by me, by the way.
Paul Araby is no longer with us. He's dead before the movie even
They
starts.
killed the best character.
It's bullshit.
The best character. The only redeeming thing I think you could reasonably argue about the original movie, and they killed him off before the movie begins.
And like we'll talk about Mal Larrabee in a minute.
Yeah.
But anyway, when he's talking to her, it is a villain scheming.
Yes.
It's almost like he enjoys what he's doing.
Yes.
He's acting like he doesn't, but you can tell that he kind of does.
Yes.
I just found it. I genuinely did not want him to be happy.
Yeah.
Like, I knew because I'd seen the original that she's going to end up with Linus, but I really wanted this to be the version where she realizes she doesn't need either of the Larrabee brothers and she can just go be her own person. But of course, that's not what happens in this because that's not what happens in the original.
Yeah, she doesn't like walk down the Champs-Elysees holding a sign that says "fuck the Larrabees," which I would have appreciated as a better ending.
Would have been great. So
Did not
okay.
happen.
So far, we've got a Sabrina who is stunted and awkward and weird and very pretty.
Yes.
Inarguably very pretty.
Yes.
We have a Linus Larrabee who is kind of a monster.
Yeah.
And undoubtedly the villain of the piece.
Yes.
Do you want to move on to? I'm curious. How much do you even have to say about Greg Kinnear as David Larrabee?
He's exactly what you'd imagine. He's got a lot of teeth. He was in a Gap ad, we learn. And it just, the only good update I would say about David is that they made it sound like, oh, well, he's had a bunch of relationships, but he's never settled down, as opposed to the original where like he's been married 3 times already, because nobody is attractive when they're on the hunt for their 4th wife. Like, it's just not cute. So they thankfully updated that to the 90s equivalent, which is like, oh, he's a playboy who's never settled down. He's the Leonardo DiCaprio of this family.
He does get, I do think he gets the best moment at the end. He gets the most character growth.
Yes.
Because they do kind of allude to the fact that he's taken all these business classes and he just never paid attention. And then when it comes time for him to actually take over the business, he finally tells all of them, no, I was paying attention. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Don't act like I don't know how to do this.
Yes.
And it's actually a nice character moment. I liked it.
Yeah. I want to talk about Mama Larrabee for a second.
That's it for Greg Kinnear?
Yeah.
I guess that's my only other problem with it. Like, if Greg Kinnear was sitting here, I would definitely apologize for saying this, but it is funny to me that he's being set up as the more handsome of the two Larrabee brothers, but he's playing opposite Harrison Ford.
Yeah, it's a high bar to clear. Like, people's sexiest man alive 3 years later. Let us not forget.
Like, that actually, I think, adds even more to how tragically miscast Harrison Ford is.
Yeah.
That not only is he miscast because he doesn't play Linus that well, but he also makes David less believable because he's more handsome than him.
He literally has a line. She says, "You're very photogenic." And he says, self-deprecatingly, "It's because I'm handsome." As if that weren't true.
Right.
But he's extremely handsome.
God, I'm trying to think who in 1995 could have played this character.
Oh, God. I don't know.
I guess I don't want anyone to play this character because I kind of want this story to go away.
Yeah, for real. Can I please talk about Mama Larrabee?
Absolutely.
So, Mother Larrabee, so she is a widow because Pa Larrabee is dead before the end of the movie. So
his only crime was being too funny.
His only crime was being too funny, and they obviously needed to update this to make her the business person. So like she's in charge. Like she is the CEO emeritus of this company. She is played by Nancy Marchand, who is a wonderful actress, but who has the sort of unfortunate fact of having stumbled into a role later in her life that she absolutely cannot escape, especially in a movie like this where she's playing like a domineering matriarch, because she's Tony Soprano's mother, Livia.
So I have never seen any of The Sopranos.
Yeah.
If this turns into another West Wing thing where anyone says like you haven't seen The Sopranos, you have to, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, we're not rewatching The Sopranos.
I don't care about the mob. We've been watching a lot of Archer though, and so I made the joke that she's a lot like Mallory, and Linus is there. All he wants is for his terrible mother to love him.
Yeah, and I was like, you don't understand how close you've just come. That is literally the entire plot of The Sopranos, that Tony's mother has made him a sociopath, but also like he's just been striving for her love and affection his entire life. But it is a little bit weird watching this and you just expect her any moment to like tell Harrison Ford to have Sabrina killed.
Time has not been kind to this for so many reasons.
Oh, God. R.I.P. Nancy Marchand. They had to kill her off on The Sopranos because she died really suddenly.
But didn't they have to do some scenes where they like digitally inserted her head and it just didn't look good?
Yeah, they did do that too. But there was a huge plot point that, anyway, she died. It's too bad.
Yeah. I've heard it's a wonderful show. I'm not going to watch it.
No, we're not going to watch it. Oh, and one more thing about that character. Nancy Marchand is 14 years older than Harrison Ford.
Yeah, which is a grand tradition now of Harrison Ford playing the child of someone who is really not that much older than him. Because it's exactly the same thing he did with Sean Connery for Last Crusade.
There it is.
I think he's like, God, I'm sure I'm wrong about this, but he's literally like 12 years older than him or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason, I suppose, that she couldn't have been a teenage mother, but I don't think so.
I don't think that's what they're going for.
No, I don't think so either.
Harrison Ford is always surprisingly older than you think he is. Like, did you know that he's 107 years old right now?
He's extremely old.
Looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks great. Looks
beat
fantastic.
the shit out of me.
Callista's keeping him young.
Yes. What was it? Harrison, Indiana, Han Solo, Jones, Ford, Flockhart.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
I would love to talk about some of these other characters that we have in this movie.
Yeah, you want to talk about Sabrina's dad?
Sure, because I think starting here, I think the movie succeeds in casting.
Yeah.
I think the three leads are all miscast.
Yes.
All of them. And also are the victims of some real script problems that are just have to be in it.
Insurmountable, yeah.
Right. But I do think once we get to the minor characters, we have some people that are genuinely very, very good, and some people who could have been so much better if they weren't in just like one or two scenes.
Yes.
So you mentioned her dad.
Yes. So this is John Wood, who we've seen before playing the very scary Mr. Brocklehurst in Jane Eyre. He's Anna Paquin's Mr. Brocklehurst. And he's very scary in that version.
That's the only thing I'd ever seen him in, and it was such a delight watching this because he's so soft-spoken and gentle and kind.
Yes.
He's wonderful.
He's wonderful. And the whole plot is that it's really sweet, actually, and they made this up just for this version, is that, like, he became a chauffeur so that he would have time to read. And she talks about how she, like, always saw him waiting for the people to come out of wherever they were with, like, a book in his hand, and her name came from his reading, like his extensive reading. But he has just this wonderful relationship with all of the other servants and actually ends up marrying the housekeeper at the end. That just kind of came out of nowhere, but it's real sweet. The only problem with his subplot is that he would actually have gone to jail for insider trading.
I've thought a little bit more about this. Do you want to paint a picture? Because I'm not so sure.
So at the end of the movie, he says to her, I can finance your life in Paris. I'm a millionaire. And she says, what are you talking about? And he says, well, I've been driving these people around for 20 years and I listened to them for all these years talking about stocks and bonds. And when they bought a stock, I bought a little bit of that stock. And when they said to sell it, I would sell it. And that's how I made my secret fortune as a chauffeur.
I'm actually going to say this. I do not think he would go to jail for insider trading.
You don't think so?
I think he would get a plea deal because they would go to jail for insider trading. Because knowing secretly what someone else is buying, if they're buying stock, that's not insider trading.
That's not insider trading. Insider trading is when you have secret knowledge of something a company is going to do.
Yeah.
So you buy up all their stock before they make that knowledge public. That's what happened to Martha Stewart.
Right. And I can only assume that's what Linus was doing the entire time he was buying stock.
Right.
I assume he was engaging in insider trading.
Right.
And this guy also was, but he didn't know it.
Right. That's fair enough.
So genuinely, I think he's not going to jail, but I think Linus is, and that is fine for me.
Fine. Everything's
That's why
fine.
he skipped town. That's why he went to Paris at the end anyway.
Yeah, that's fine.
IRS coming.
That's fine.
IRS doesn't care about that. SEC, right?
You're asking me?
I'm so sorry. But yes. So he's great. I have no problem with John Wood.
Yes.
He's great.
He's great. In another kind of tragically small role, we have Paul Giamatti as the gardener.
Yeah, he's one of the people that work there.
Yeah, when he was still kind of chubby.
Baby.
Yeah, like
baby Paul Giamatti.
Baby Paul Giamatti.
Never not great in anything.
Yeah.
Always giving 100%.
And then Becky Ann Baker, who is the mom from Freaks and Geeks, as one of the servants as well.
Mm-hmm.
She's fine. And then that housekeeper that John Wood marries at the end is very sweet. And they all just love Sabrina so much. It's very cute. It's very nice.
Can we talk about the Tysons?
Yeah.
So this is the other family. This is the woman that Linus wants David to marry so that they can do a merger because plastics are still a big... No, it's because they own the company that makes the like really strong LCD panel.
Yes.
They still have a stupid scene, I don't even think we mentioned it, where David goes into Linus's office and out of nowhere Linus just takes out a gun and just starts shooting at something that's in the office just to show how strong this thing is, which still doesn't sit with me because like the bullet would then ricochet. Someone's gonna die.
Someone's gonna die.
Like Linus does not strike me as someone who would just fire a gun off in the building. He's far too reserved.
And it's not even Chekhov's gun because it never comes up
Never
again.
once.
It's really disappointing.
What do they call that? What do they call Chekhov's gun?
I don't know. Chekhov's fake gun.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
But the Tysons are all like every single one of them I think is interesting.
Yeah.
So you've got the dad who is Richard Crenna, who you know Richard Crenna.
He's that guy.
No, he was Rambo's handler for all of the Rambo movies.
I have never seen a Rambo movie in all of my life.
I know that's what you know him from.
Okay.
We have his wife Ingrid, who is played by Angie Dickinson.
Yeah.
Who is just what would you call her? Is she royalty? Is she Hollywood royalty?
Yeah, I suppose.
In a way.
In a way.
Playing. Actually, you know what? No, I have a problem with her because they wrote the character so stupid.
Yeah, they made her really stupid.
It's really annoying.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Now that I say no, boo.
Take
boo,
it back. Take it
boo.
back.
That character sucks.
Yes.
But we do have Lauren Holly as Elizabeth Tyson.
She's great. Well, they've updated this character. Like there are a lot of things where you just see someone in the background doing jazz hands going, it's the 90s. They've made her a pediatric emergency room doctor, which is actually what my brother does. So like very sympathetic because she saves children's lives all day.
Yeah.
But also a millionaire in her own right. So she has no need for David other than to, that she actually loves him apparently for some reason.
This is one of those opportunities where we could have expanded on that character.
Yeah.
They made her stronger, but also didn't give her any more screen time.
Yes, very little screen time.
So that I felt kind of robbed by, but I like Lauren Holly. I thought she was good.
You know what the other thing I liked was that they made her complicit in the plot in the end to make Linus reveal that he loves Sabrina. Like they brought her into the plot and like made her play a role. So you kind of like her even better because she's like helping to get Linus and Sabrina together.
Yeah. Yeah, you never dislike her in this movie.
No.
You know what would have been great?
What?
If at any point in this goddamn movie she and Sabrina actually got a scene together.
Yeah, this movie, it does pass the Bechdel test because Sabrina talks to the Larrabee mom.
She does.
She talks to Livia Soprano.
Right. About what, though?
I don't remember. Oh, and she talks to her French friend all the time.
Yeah, but don't they just talk about men?
No, they talk about like her career
That's
and
true.
like what Paris is like in the fall when the leaves are changing. Like there's all of this like weird romantic dialogue that does not matter even a little.
God, yeah. So So the Tysons, I think, are fine. The mom, I hate the way the character is written.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about Dana Ivey?
Oh yeah. Yes. Dana Ivey, who you'll know from The Addams Family and many other things.
She marries Cousin It.
She marries Cousin It. Is Linus's devoted secretary. And she's got a couple of really funny scenes. She's just like a comic secondary character.
Yeah.
But I like the part where Sabrina comes in and she's like, "Oh, this was a mistake to come here. Don't tell him I'm here." And Dana Ivey just looks at her with all the pity in the world and says, "No, he pays me. Like, I work for him. I'm gonna tell him you're here."
There are people in this movie who should be in this movie.
Yeah.
There are people who are made to deliver this kind of dialogue, and Dana Ivey is one of them.
Yes.
And I want to end with probably the biggest problem that I have with this movie.
Yeah.
Which is that you have an actor who it would be perfect to be in more of this, and she is criminally relegated to one scene.
She's got one line.
And it's Margot Martindale.
She's got one line.
Who's just a fucking treasure.
She's David's butt nurse.
Yes. All the butt stuff. This movie has so much less butt stuff than the first one did. I don't understand it. Like, I don't know why. Did they want this to be a comedy? Anyway, we'll come back to that. So that's the cast.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. That's
Yes.
the cast.
Yeah.
Is this movie funny? What's funny about this movie? Is this a comedy?
No, they took out the only freaking funny character. The dad in the original is so funny, and no one in this is funny. Everyone is like, and even if they are funny, it's like desperately playing against the fact that they're funny.
You're talking about like the leads.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm kind of talking about the supporting characters too.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's not funny. It's like mysterious because you don't know what anybody wants. Well, you kind of know what they want, but you don't know why they want it at any given time, and you don't know.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
It's just not that funny. It's really not that funny.
Here's what it reminds me of. Have you ever seen when they take clips from like Friends or Big Bang Theory and remove the laugh track?
Yeah.
And what you're left with is just a bunch of people being really mean to each other.
Yeah, like with bad dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
That's what this movie feels like
Yeah.
because obviously there's no laugh track in the original, but you've got people delivering the dialogue in a snappy and witty way that makes it feel lighter.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like they're being really mean to each other.
Yeah.
But in this one, everyone's really selling the mean things they're saying.
Yeah.
And it just comes across as a very negative movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good to laugh at. I
Yeah.
laughed at so little in this movie.
Yes.
And even though a lot from the original didn't sit well with me, it was still fun.
Yeah.
It was still a funny movie to watch.
Yeah.
And so
This one was kind of a slug.
it's dour.
Yeah.
It's just really dour and
Slow. Very
Yeah.
slow. Like, I don't know that you can have comedy that moves this slowly.
no.
Comedy is faster paced.
Generally. Or like it builds, it's just a problem with tone
Yeah.
too, that like the movie takes itself way too seriously. It takes itself romantically? Is that?
Yeah, like it thinks it's romantic.
Yes.
Well, there are these. I mean, this may be moving on to sort of what I think is your next question was, is this movie romantic?
Yes, that is absolutely my last question.
So let me give you an example of something that I think was supposed to be a grand romantic gesture that does not make sense. So they're on Martha's Vineyard and they're walking around, which it was actually, they must have had a good location budget because it was filmed on Martha's Vineyard and in Paris as well. Like the scenes in Paris are definitely in Paris, or at least some of them are. But they're walking around, Sabrina and Linus, and they see this like sort of old abandoned brick building at the end of the street. And Sabrina goes, "Oh, what a beautiful building. Like, it's too bad that it's neglected like that. Like, I love to see like an old brick building. They don't make buildings like that anymore." And Linus goes, "Oh, I mean, I actually, she says, "I hope they don't knock it down." And he says, "Oh, no, they won't. I own that building and I own that whole street."
Which is true.
She's
just said something true.
That is a true fact. He's not like lying or anything. But in trying to impress her, which by the way, like it's a very generic form of impressing someone because she hasn't given us the impression that she cares about like people that are
Can I be a little more specific about
less
this?
fortunate. Yeah.
There is a homeless person on the street in front of them picking bottles out of a garbage can.
Right.
There is like that is what the movie is presenting to us in that moment.
Right. And nothing about her leads us to understand that like she cares about the rights of the disenfranchised or anything like that. So this is a very like generic gesture.
But we see Harrison Ford. We see like Linus put two and two together.
Yeah.
He's like he looks at the building and he looks at the homeless guy and he looks at Sabrina.
And he says, "Oh yeah, I'm donating it to the town to use as a halfway house, you know, for those poor people that are getting out of jail and just need a second chance."
On Martha's vineyard.
On Martha's vineyard. And she's very impressed by this, very impressed. And there are halfway houses on Martha's Vineyard. We looked it up, but they're all like drug and substance related. They're not for like people that are getting out of jail and need like a little bit of a lift. They're all like sober living type of places, which is not what he's talking about at all. And then, like, later on, we hear him, like, telling his secretary, like, oh, call Martha's Vineyard and, like, donate that building to the town. But only if this happens and this happens. Okay, no, I guess go ahead and have it donated. Like, it's just, like, it's supposed to be a grand romantic gesture. We are supposed to read it that way. And it is dumb. It is kind of dumb.
Can I present a different argument for a second?
Yes.
I actually don't think this is being presented as romantic.
Okay.
I think this is being presented as comedy.
Okay. Fascinating.
And
okay.
how much does that speak to the basic problem of this movie?
Yeah, it's neither romantic nor funny.
But I really think this is a funny moment. This is us as an audience looking at a character who is flying by the seat of his pants, making a quick decision. It's backfiring a little bit in the moment, and then he's got to just give up on it later.
Yeah.
I think that's humor.
Yeah.
I don't think it's funny.
That's fair.
But I think it's being presented as funny.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
But because of the tone of this movie, it's coming across as like failed romanticism.
Yeah. Yes. Correct. Yes.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all.
I'm so glad we talked about this.
Yeah. So can I give an example of like another like updated romantic moment?
Yes.
So obviously in this version, she's taking a plane to Paris at the end of the movie rather than a boat. So he can't like jump on a tugboat and like race out to jump on the boat. You can't really do that with a plane. So the solution instead is go on, Linus. We got you a helicopter to JFK, and here's a ticket for the Concorde. You'll meet her in Paris because your plane will go a lot faster. And whatever Concorde paid for the product placement for this movie is very unfortunate because it crashed 5 years later and never recovered.
Even being in Sabrina was not enough to save the company.
Being in Sabrina was not enough to save the Concorde. It's so sad.
God, this is like a separate thing. This doesn't have to do with the humor or the romanticism, but the way you talked before about the signifiers, the way this movie has been updated for 1995.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because they spent so much time peppering in so many little things to update the kind of the time and place.
Yeah.
But they did nothing to update the roles of the people involved.
Right. Right. And it also makes it more dated because now we're just talking about 90s technology instead of like 40s technology.
Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, God, it doesn't.
There's like an advertisement for the internet that's playing in there in the lobby. Like Larrabee Communications bringing you the world. God, the World Wide Web, that is.
The internet in 1995 was such an amazing thing. So much promise. So much promise.
So much promise. Now reduced to cat memes.
Oh, and us.
And us.
Thanks. No, actually, you know what? Thank you, internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to finish up with some of this romantic stuff.
Yeah.
This quote unquote romantic bullshit. Because you've got so many scenes that are presented in such a slow John Williams' score for this I would describe as lush.
Yeah.
It is a very lush, very beautiful score that is not funny.
No.
It's not diverting.
Right.
It is just kind of quote unquote romantic score.
Sure.
But that I feel like the microcosm of this movie is all of the sequences on Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
Because it represents so much about the lazy way in which this was updated and written and acted and miscast, and the way the comedy doesn't play and the romanticism doesn't play, because we get these little montages of her on the island with Linus riding around on bikes with the music playing in the sunset, and they have like a little candlelit dinner on the beach together. And I do not remember anything they talked about.
No.
They just talked at each other for 15 minutes. And at no point did I feel like I got to know either of them better. At no point did I feel like he was anything less than a villain.
Yeah.
He was still a villain. He was more of a villain because I'm just watching him lie to her for minutes on end. And she just seemed like such a little naive, stunted woman. I was going to say kid, but she's not a kid. She's a grown woman.
Yeah. Not
seeing through any of this stuff. But I guess the one thing I have to say is that the romanticism in this one is way more believable than the other one, because I can see Julia Ormond falling in love with someone who looks like Harrison Ford a lot more than I can see someone who looks like Audrey Hepburn falling in love with Humphrey Bogart.
And there it is. Like, it's pure casting. Even though Harrison Ford is miscast, but if you just go on looks alone.
This movie is nothing. At the end of the day, this movie is nothing.
It really is. It was it's not so good.
Do you want to finish this up?
Yeah.
I guess that's not really finishing on a high note.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's. Or are you apologizing to me or to everybody else?
It's just, I don't know. Both?
Yeah. Well, I accept your apology.
Thank you.
I hope everyone else does.
Thank you. Fantastic.
God, there's like a different version of this movie that I would love to see.
Yeah.
Because I actually think this is an interesting start of a story.
Yeah, you'd have to do a lot of like actual updates to the character of Sabrina to
Yeah.
make it to make her an interesting person.
Mhm.
But I do think you're right. There is a story here. It's just not this movie.
I really think here's how I would put it. Let's make some basic changes, and I want to give you a better version of this movie.
Gotcha.
Here's a slightly better version of this movie.
This is a good way to end.
Winona Ryder plays Sabrina.
Yes.
First and foremost.
Yes.
And part of this is that she ends up with no one at the end.
Yes.
All right. We still have Harrison Ford and Greg Kinnear as the sons.
Yes.
But I am reversing them.
Oh.
Harrison Ford is now the older ne'er-do-well.
Yes.
Who's kind of fun and doesn't really care about business and just wants to like fly planes and be a carpenter.
Yes.
Or something like that, which I think should be easy for Harrison Ford to do.
Yes.
And you've got Greg Kinnear as the young, very focused, very interested in business son.
Yeah, he's Michael Corleone.
Right? And you've got Winona Ryder, who, like, it's clear she'd be more interested in Harrison Ford because he's more fun and he looks more like Harrison Ford than Greg Kinnear does. I think that's the best thing I can say about Harrison Ford is he really looks like Harrison
He
Ford.
looks great. He looks great.
Looks fantastic.
And he wears a lot of bow ties in this movie
Mhm.
as a tribute, I think, to Humphrey Bogart,
Yep.
whose character wears a lot of bow ties.
We bring back the dad.
Mhm.
And I honestly think those basic changes, having the characters play more to their strengths as actors, giving Sabrina more agency, and giving her the ability to not choose either of the Larrabee brothers at the end, I think that would have made this a much more interesting movie.
Yeah,
And
totally.
and it still could have been a remake of the original. It doesn't. I don't think that takes away from the original.
Yeah, but it like actually updates it, like because
Yeah.
it updates the characters instead of just the setting.
hmm
You know what I mean?
I think that's what I would have liked to see.
Yeah. Well, that's a good note to go out on, a positive note to go out on.
So let's do some quadrants really quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
So I guess we don't know enough about the play to do the original is the original.
Yes.
Like we said, like the original is Sabrina.
That's fine.
Okay. Do you think in 1995 that they made this movie because they care about Sabrina?
No, it sounds like it was a complete accident.
Yep. Do you think they did a good job?
No.
Okay. Do you think that our fictional remake is made by people who care about Sabrina?
No.
No, we don't really care about Sabrina that
But
much.
did we do a good job?
Did we do a good job?
Yes, I would argue.
I mean, it's really, who could say?
Who can say?
This is Schrodinger's Sabrina. We have no idea. It could have been amazing. We will never know.
We'll never know.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are two great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated.
So this is where I would usually say a funny line from one of the movies, and I think this is a reflection on the quality and memorability of these movies. I got nothing.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
All right, well, bye, everyone.
Bye.